I say at the start of this, you should not try and emulate anything that happens in the course of this confession.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay.
Absolutely clear?
Right.
Thank you.
Crystal.
Father Simon and the gathered lenient lovies. Absolutely
Love
right.
that.
Got the mayor. My confession dates back to the 70s when I was a small child of 5. And I think this is relevant. It's a long time ago and she's 5 years old. I mean, we know how innocent
I already know
5-year-olds
this is
are.
going to be good. Yeah, go on.
And for mitigating circumstances, I will furnish you with the situation I found myself in when the unfortunate events occurred. I was the youngest and the only girl of the family. I was advised that I was a very wanted girl, and as such, I didn't have to try too hard to have the support of my parents with any of the boys whenever they teased me or tormented me. Actually, in truth, I was usually the child that instigated the teasing to see how far I could make the boys go, knowing if it got too much for me, I was able to rely on my parents to pick me up, with me sneering over a shoulder at them, and they would be admonished for their unfair treatment of me because I was in charge.
Well, once again, I'm going to enter the... Were you the oldest or the youngest in the family?
Mm-hmm. You see, I've always been the starter of hijinks, but with the wisdom to walk away before being reprimanded, being the youngest and only girl wasn't half bad. But the teasing and tormenting from my brothers was incessant, especially from the nearest older brother, who I will refer to as Alan. Alan's ability to wind me up was unrelenting. This is still the case to this very day. He would often sit in his bedroom and record himself on his cassette recorder saying, "I'll hate her till doomsday, I'll hate her till doomsday," and play it back time and time again. I knew this as I was sitting tapping a pencil on his bedroom door to see how long it would take to make him melt down.
Meltdown.
Yeah.
Great.
There's tension in this house.
Yeah, there is.
Anyway, back to the event. Both parents were working full-time, and often, as it was in those days, when school holidays were upon us, we'd be loaned out to other families to lighten the expense of babysitters or community clubs. On the day in question, myself and my nearest brother were to be loaned out to a couple who I will call Doris and Dave for this story. Now, we've been with these two before. I wasn't a fan. They were taking us for a day out. This usually meant that there was hidden fighting to be done in the back of the car, i.e. we hit each other as hard as possible without making a noise with the hit or with the receiving of the hit, with the added fun of looking angelic to Doris and Dave and not wincing in pain. My guess is that there are quite a few brothers and sisters who've done the same thing. It's quite a challenge, and obviously don't do it. We're not condoning that at all, or anything else. To my utter horror, they were taking us to the zoo, which I can only describe as the worst place that you could take me. Don't get me wrong, I love animals with a passion, but at the time of this visit, you could get really close to them and their smells. And this was before the days of security barriers and wire netting. It's a super hot day, the smells were intense. The bickering between brother and sister was at a new high. A couple of hours in a hot car was really taking its toll. Doris and Dave seemed happy that we'd arrived in the zoo, probably just to get out of the sweatbox Ford Cortina that we're all melting. Another old car reference for you, Bobby, just to... Mm-hmm. Do you like that?
I don't mind a Ford Cortina. Never had one, but yeah, pretty good.
At the monkey cage, Alan thought it was funny to introduce me to my real family and proceeded to do monkey impressions for the rest of the visit. At the polar bears, he would ask if I was missing my monkey family. Every poster we walked by with a monkey on, he would point at it and compare the resemblance of me to the apes. He probably knew I was at breaking point, and I think Doris and Dave knew too. They were now hurrying us along to the rest of the animals, probably to get us out of there and back into the sauna of a Cortina for the ride home. It was as I was looking at the rhinos and leaning over the wall to admire the rhino calf where it all peaked. I was leaning on a wall, watching the rhinos. Alan climbed up on the wall next to me and did a monkey. That was a monkey impression.
Yes, well done,
Not a rhino.
Yeah.
No. And he did it right in my face, where I, with one hand and probably accidentally, pushed him quite hard into the rhino pit.
Into the rhino pit.
Yes. Next to the rhino calf. Now,
oh, what?
The commotion that followed could only be described as hysteria. Doris and Dave stood like open-mouthed statues. Then Doris started to cry. No wail. Park keepers were yelling, and the mother of the calf started to turn around. There was no stampede or anything. I really do think some of the reactions were a little over the top. But Alan, apparently, so he claims, was terrified. He claims that he could have been killed. Anyway, he was fished out and we were dragged back to the car amidst tourists staring and saying things like, well, I blame the parents and they had no control over them, which didn't help poor Doris's state, and she sobbed for the entire journey back. I still tease Alan with this to this day. I seek out rhinoceros material to tag him into. So now I send him pictures of rhinos, even after all these years. Although actually he's now disabled all his social media accounts because of this. And oh, how we, or more accurately, laugh about it now. So I need absolution, not from Alan. It was not long after that he pulled out my front teeth. And not...
This family.
What a family this is. And not from Doris and Dave either. She tried to put pigtails in my hair and pass me off as her own. Who does that? Anyway, I seek forgiveness from the rhino calf that endured a few minutes of my brother's company. And from the general public too, as I think it was my actions on that day that started safety glass and wire netting and then our increased attention to health and safety. I'm sure it's only a coincidence that the HSE was established in that decade. Yours, ashamedly, Gloria. It was all an accident, honestly. Well, you see when I said, obviously don't...
No.
Because this was a long, long time ago and she was 5 and she didn't know what she was doing, reacted... Brother was slightly concerned about where he'd ended up.
Yeah.
As were everyone reacted. Anyway, everything was fine in the end, Bobby.
It certainly was. What a glorious, glorious family, Gloria. You sound absolutely fantastic. What I really love, it really shows that you were brought up properly. If you can do secret fighting or hidden fighting in a car because you know not to behave in somebody else's car. So that's, shows how well you were brought up, and I think that's commendable because it's the kind of thing that we kind of aspire to at that age. And you were only 5. And the thing is, it wasn't your fault really, because let's face it, he was asking for it. You didn't realise the consequences would be so great. And actually, I think if this did start the big kind of health and safety revolution, I think we've got you to thank for it because it protects the animals better. So really, that's a good thing.
It was not long after this he pulled out my front teeth.
Yes.
Anyway,
well, they were probably the loose ones anyway.
We need to hear from Alan.
I
really.
think you sound like a perfectly functional family, and I only admire you all. You are forgiven,
Brother Matthew.
Yet again, younger sibling getting away with murder, as per, I think you'll find. The 70s clearly were a completely different world, weren't they? I mean, surely we still believed in putting the fences around the dangerous animals. We weren't just having them roaming around. Apparently, you could just climb up on a fence as a 5-year-old and knock your elder sibling into a pit with the rhinos.
Well, in those days, we looked at things differently.
Well, we certainly did. I mean, it's a rhino pit, and I'm getting up there as a 5-year-old. So, yes, I'm going to forgive. Am I? No, I'm not. I'm not going to forgive because she's the youngest sibling, and I've just realised those are the rules. Sorry.